Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Bradley was never the suspicious type. During 12 years of marriage to Rachel, he always believed trust was the foundation of everything, so he never questioned the odd hours, the deleted messages, or the last-minute meetings she kept mentioning with increasing frequency. Rachel worked as an event manager at a luxury hotel in Charleston, and Bradley, who worked as a financial analyst at a consulting firm, always respected the unpredictable demands of her career. But on that Thursday in October, something changed. Something small, almost insignificant, set off an avalanche of discoveries Bradley could never have imagined. It was around 5 in the afternoon when Bradley realized he'd forgotten to tell Rachel he'd be getting off work early that day. He'd planned a simple surprise, cooking her favorite dinner, opening a bottle of wine, and maybe watching that movie she'd been asking to see together. After all, it was their dating anniversary, a date Rachel seemed to have forgotten to mention all week. Bradley didn't mind. He'd never been the type to demand those things. He figured it would be the perfect chance to surprise her. He grabbed his phone and called Rachel. The call rang once, twice, 3 times, then went straight to voicemail. Strange, Bradley thought. Rachel almost always answered, especially when she saw it was him. Maybe she was in a meeting. He waited a few minutes and tried again. Nothing. Then, less than a minute later, Bradley's phone buzzed. A message from Rachel, "I'm busy." Bradley frowned. Just 2 words. No, hey, love, no, I'll call you back, not even an emoji. Just, "I'm busy." There was something in the coldness of that reply that quietly set off an alarm in Bradley's mind. He typed back, "Okay, I just wanted to let you know I'll be home early. What time are you getting back?" He hit send and stared at the screen, waiting for the 3 dots to show she was typing. Nothing. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. No reply. Bradley tried to convince himself he was overreacting, but his unease grew. He called again. This time the call went straight to voicemail, as if her phone was off or she'd rejected the call. That's when Bradley felt something twist in his stomach. He'd never been the kind of man who checked his wife's phone or asked invasive questions, but something about that afternoon felt deeply wrong. Without thinking much, Bradley decided to swing by the hotel where Rachel worked. It was on his way home, after all. Just a quick hello, he told himself, trying to justify the sudden decision. He parked in front of the imposing glass and marble building and walked into the lobby. The receptionist, a young woman with blonde hair pulled into a flawless bun, smiled when she saw him. "Hi, Bradley. What a surprise. Looking for Rachel?" "Yeah, is she around?" The receptionist checked her computer and shook her head. "She left early today. Around 3, I think. 3 in the afternoon." Bradley glanced at his watch. It was almost 7. 4 hours. Where had Rachel been for the past 4 hours? He thanked the receptionist, trying to hide the confusion washing over him, and returned to his car. Sitting in the driver's seat, Bradley pulled out his phone and opened the shared location app he and Rachel used. They'd set it up years ago for safety, in case either of them got lost or needed help. Bradley had never used that feature before. He'd never needed to. He typed Rachel's name and waited for the map to load. When the location appeared, Bradley's heart sank. The red dot showed Rachel's phone was at a residential address just a few miles away, in a quiet neighborhood of modest homes Bradley didn't recognize. It wasn't their house. It wasn't the home of any friend or family member he knew. It was a completely unfamiliar address. Bradley's hands trembled on the steering wheel. Part of him wanted to go home, ignore it all, believe there was a reasonable explanation. But the stronger part, the part that already suspected the truth, started the engine and headed toward that dot on the map. The drive took 15 minutes that felt like an eternity. Bradley's heart pounded in his chest, his palms sweaty. When he finally reached the address, he saw it. Rachel's car, the silver sedan he'd helped her pick out 3 years ago, was parked in the garage of a single-story house with beige walls and an unkempt garden. Bradley parked across the street and stared at the house for a few moments, trying to process what he was seeing. All the pieces started falling into place: the deleted messages, the strange hours, the nights Rachel came home and went straight to the shower, the lack of interest in sex over the past few weeks, the constant forgetfulness. Bradley felt a mix of anger, sadness, and a strange calm wash over him. He got out of the car and crossed the street. He climbed the 3 porch steps and knocked firmly on the door. No answer. He knocked again, harder this time, more insistently. He heard movement inside, muffled whispers, hurried footsteps. Finally, the door opened. A man around 40, with brown hair and gray streaks at the temples, wearing a wrinkled blue dress shirt, looked at Bradley with an expression mixing surprise and discomfort. Bradley recognized him immediately. Andrew. The new director of operations at Rachel's hotel, hired 6 months earlier. Rachel had mentioned him a few times, always in professional contexts: Andrew this, Andrew that, Andrew approved my project. Bradley had never seen a photo of him, but Rachel had described him enough for Bradley to know exactly who this man was. Before Andrew could say anything, Rachel appeared behind him. She was barefoot, her hair messy, wearing a light blouse Bradley didn't recognize. When her eyes met Bradley's, all the color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Bradley looked at her, then at Andrew, then back at Rachel. And then, with a cold calm that even surprised himself, he said, "I'm busy, huh? Stay with him. Don't come home." He turned and started walking down the steps. Rachel ran after him, shouting, "Bradley, wait. Please, let me explain. It's not what you think." Bradley kept walking, without looking back. "Bradley. Please. I love you. It was a mistake. Please." He got in the car, started the engine, and drove off, leaving Rachel standing in the middle of the street, crying. In the rearview mirror, Bradley saw Andrew pull her back inside. And then, finally, he let the tears fall. That night, Bradley didn't go home. He went straight to a hotel, booked a room, and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process everything. Part of him wanted to call Rachel, hear her explanation, give her a chance. But the stronger part knew there was no possible explanation for what he'd seen. She hadn't been busy with work. She'd been with another man. In his house. In the middle of the afternoon. Bradley picked up his phone and blocked Rachel's number. Then he called the family lawyer a coworker had recommended years ago during a messy divorce. He scheduled an appointment for the next morning. On Friday, Bradley went back home. Rachel had called dozens of times, left countless voicemails, sent desperate texts. He ignored them all. When he arrived at the house they shared, Bradley changed the locks. He called an emergency locksmith and paid double to have it done immediately. Then he went to the bedroom and started packing Rachel's things: clothes, shoes, beauty products, everything. He put it all in suitcases and left them in the garage. That's when Bradley remembered the laptop. They had a shared computer, mostly used by Rachel for work, kept in the living room. Bradley had never touched it without permission, but now the rules had changed. He opened the laptop and went straight to Rachel's email. She'd never changed the password, something Bradley had always seen as a sign of trust. Now it just seemed careless. What Bradley found in the emails was devastating. Messages exchanged between Rachel and Andrew dated back 4 months. At first, they were professional, discussing events and logistics. But quickly, the tone shifted: compliments, flirting, increasingly intimate messages. Then, 2 months ago, the first explicit mention: "I can't keep pretending. I need you." Bradley read it all, every message, every declaration, every plan they'd made. Andrew had promised to leave his wife for Rachel. Rachel, in turn, had said she was trapped in a passionless marriage, that Bradley was a good man, but not the right one. Each word felt like a stab. But the worst was yet to come. Bradley checked the transaction history of their joint bank account. There, he found transfers he didn't recognize, small amounts, never large enough to raise suspicion, but totaling nearly $5,000 over the past 3 months. He traced the expenses: hotels, restaurants, a trip to Savannah that Rachel had claimed was a work conference for the hotel. Bradley checked the dates. He'd stayed home taking care of their dog while Rachel was in Savannah with Andrew. Bradley felt anger boiling inside him, but it wasn't explosive. It was cold, calculated. He knew exactly what to do. He printed everything, every email, every bank statement, every incriminating message, and organized it all in a clean, labeled folder. Then he took action. First, Bradley found Andrew's wife's social media profile. Her name was Diana, a sweet-looking woman with 2 young kids in her photos. Bradley created an anonymous email and sent Diana all the evidence he'd gathered, along with a simple message: "I thought you should know the truth about your husband." Next, Bradley contacted the Human Resources Department at the hotel where Rachel and Andrew worked. He explained the situation and presented proof that an improper relationship between a manager and a director was taking place, clearly violating the company's conduct policies. HR thanked him for the information and said they'd take appropriate action. Finally, Bradley sent a copy of everything to Rachel's parents. Richard and Susan had always treated Bradley like a son. They deserved to know the truth about what their daughter had done. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Diana, Andrew's wife, called Bradley Saturday morning, crying and thanking him for having the courage to tell the truth. She said she'd already suspected something but had no proof. Now she did. She filed for divorce the following Monday and demanded full custody of the children, something her lawyer said was very likely to be granted under the circumstances. The hotel acted quickly. Andrew was fired on Tuesday for violating professional relationship policies and creating an inappropriate work environment. Rachel wasn't fired, but she was demoted and transferred to a lower-profile administrative role with a significant pay cut. Rachel's parents called Bradley in tears. Susan said she was ashamed and disappointed in her daughter. Richard told Bradley he'd always been the son-in-law he'd hoped for and that, no matter what happened between him and Rachel, they'd always consider him family. They said they needed time to process everything and, for now, had decided to cut contact with their daughter. Rachel tried to come back home several times. She knocked on the door, begged, cried. Bradley never opened it. She sent messages saying she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, that she never meant to hurt anyone, that she'd been confused, that Andrew had taken advantage of her. Bradley never replied. In the divorce proceedings, which officially began 2 weeks after the discovery, Bradley presented all the evidence he'd collected. Rachel's lawyer argued for an equal division of assets, but Bradley's attorney proved bad faith, adultery, and misuse of joint account funds. The judge, reviewing the evidence, ruled that Bradley would keep the house, most of their shared savings, and the dog they'd adopted together. 6 months after the discovery, Bradley was unrecognizable, not physically, but emotionally. He'd joined a support group for divorced men, where he met others who'd been through similar situations. They met every Tuesday night at a local church, sharing stories, offering advice, simply listening. Bradley realized he wasn't alone. He learned that his pain was valid, but it didn't define him. He also returned to playing guitar, a hobby he'd abandoned in the early years of marriage because Rachel always complained about the noise. Bradley bought a new guitar, a shiny navy blue Fender Stratocaster, and started taking lessons every Thursday night. He wasn't good, not yet anyway, but it didn't matter. Playing guitar made him feel alive in a way he hadn't in years. Rachel, on the other hand, wasn't doing well. She tried repeatedly to reconcile with Bradley. Regretful messages arrived weekly. "I ruined everything," read one. "You were the best man I ever had," said another. "Please give me a chance to prove I've changed." Bradley never responded. He'd blocked her number, but she found other ways to reach out: emails, social media messages, even letters delivered to his house. Andrew, meanwhile, lost everything. Jobless, wifeless, childless, he desperately tried to get back together with Diana, but she wouldn't even listen. She'd hired an aggressive lawyer who ensured Andrew got the smallest possible share of assets and extremely limited visitation rights. Andrew eventually moved to another state, trying to start over somewhere no one knew his story. Rachel tried to stay in touch with Andrew after everything fell apart, but he blamed her for it all. He said she'd been careless, that she should have been more discreet. He cut off contact completely. Rachel found herself utterly alone, without her husband, without her lover, without her job title, without her parents' respect. She ended up moving back in with Richard and Susan, who eventually took her back, but their relationship was never the same. Disappointment still hung in the air. A year after the discovery, Bradley was in a completely different place. He hadn't fallen in love again, nor was he looking for it. But he was at peace. He'd learned to value his own company, to take care of himself, to not rely on someone else to feel whole. He still attended the support group, now not as someone desperately needing help, but as someone who could offer help to others just beginning that painful journey. He'd also made new friends. Through the group, he met Marcus, a 50-year-old man who'd gone through a devastating divorce 3 years earlier and now ran a small landscaping business. Marcus and Bradley started grabbing beers on Friday nights, talking about life, sports, simple things that didn't involve pain or betrayal. It was refreshing. It was freeing. Rachel, Bradley heard through mutual acquaintances, was still living with her parents. She'd tried to rebuild her career, but her reputation in Charleston's event industry was ruined. She ended up taking a job at a small catering company, earning a fraction of what she used to. She was still single. Still regretful. Still trying, from time to time, to reach out to Bradley. But Bradley never gave in. Not because he wanted to see her suffer, but because he'd realized something fundamental that Thursday when he saw Rachel at Andrew's house: some things, once broken, can't be fixed. And trying to repair something irreparable isn't self-love, it's self-destruction. Bradley learned that dignity matters more than any attempt to save something already lost. He learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't doing something to the person who hurt you, it's simply moving on and building a better life without them. He learned that self-respect isn't negotiable. And that Thursday afternoon, when he said, "Stay with him. Don't come home," Bradley wasn't just ending a marriage. For the first time in 12 years, he was choosing himself. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.